Thanks for your patience. All right, good morning. Welcome to Saturday, April 29th. Um, so what I was looking up was the different definition of uh, transform, transmute, and transcend. So, because they all have a little bit, they're similar. Well, transmute and transform are similar, right? And so I was reading the different opinions, point of views on what's comes first. Does transformation come first, then transmutation, and then transcendence? So that's yeah. So I got caught up in that incredible rabbit hole. I think it's just really a point of view, right? But what I wanted to share with you about the three T's was the importance of all three of them in our evolution. And so it started this morning in a meditation with a question was asked of me to review again is well, it was more of a statement this morning, which was to choose our identities, to ensure that we're choosing our identity. So a lot of times we have an identity or we identify as something or someone. And the question really becomes, who gave me that identity? Who provided that? And do I still want that? And it can be an identity or, maybe sometimes called a role. And so Karen and I had an incredible conversation yesterday. Thank you, Karen. And she had so lovingly pointed out, so I want to share that because that's just Karen in her nature, that when I'm sharing a story about being a rebel, I still was, up until yesterday, was speaking it as if it was still part of who I am. And there was a time that that role was needed. And the role of the rebel is, I no longer, require her on a regular basis. And if I do need her, I have access to her, right? But it was really interesting, to be, if you're around like-minded individuals who can point out those pieces, right? When they see, I think that's one of the greatest thing about working with other people and having other people in your life, even as like, right, a coach, having other coaches, right? I have different people that are helping me with different parts of my health, right? And all of those kinds of things. And so I'm sure that's why it led to this morning's meditation about identity. So thank you for that, Karen. So we get to choose our identities. And the fun thing is looking at who have you identified with in your past, and are you still in that role? Are you speaking it into existence? Are you speaking it as if it's an I am, right? And only speak of the identities, like choosing the identities that you want. So only speaking into existence the identity or the role that you currently desire. And so interesting that all of the, like some of my childhood, roles came up last night and today about who people think that I am. And I was always fascinated by this because, I felt truly that no one really knew who I was. Right now, part of that is, I think, there's the story of growing up in an alcoholic home and just my ability to chameleon for out of necessity, out of protection, safety, and security. And that doesn't happen just by the way in alcoholic homes. Like I think there's a lot of us who are not comfortable. Maybe we grew up knowing that we were different, knowing that I don't know if I would have called it a gift that I had when I was a kid, but I certainly knew, right, that I wasn't alike. It's like the whole Sesame Street through there's three of these things and one's not like the other. That's kind of how I felt growing up, right? There's three of these things and one's not like the other. And so and then but allowing that to be part of my story, but not be my story. And and so that's the whole the belonging piece, right? So if we're creating a new identity, from this day forward, who do you want that to be? Who are you identifying as now? And are you, one of the questions I asked was, who gave you the identity? But are even if you gave yourself an identity, do you want that identity? And if you're resisting an identity, what's in the resistance? Or are you not resonating with it? For years, and like 4 years, people in my circle, and mostly I guess my friends or people who've worked with me, uh, have referred to me being a healer, and I have resisted that up until probably recently, because, oh, excuse me while I move some energy, because I had in my head what a healer looked like, what a healer did. So there was some limiting thoughts and beliefs attached to that. There was resistance attached to that, and comparison, right? So if I compare myself to Karen, who I would say hands down is a healer, right? I'm so different, right? So then I come out, uh, before, I don't now, but come out like less than. So that's the comparison piece, right? And so, and again, we go back to, is it resistance, or is it just non-resonance to it? And then going into the definition, like what, so for me, it was the healer. So what is a healer, right? And letting go of like, what does a healer do? But what is a healer? And just going back to different parts of my life. When I had all the Curves franchises, I tried to manage the staff, right? And what now I can look back and go, what was required of me as the CEO wasn't to manage the staff, but to lead the staff. But I resisted the terminology and the responsibility of leader. So I was more, let's say, comfortable with managing, right? And what happened, though, at that time in my life, due to my need for control, I was a great micromanager, right? So thinking I was empowering, and it was like this back and forth between trying to lead and having really no mentor for leadership at the time, and then going back into managing. And when I hired a coach, so I had a coach, was through, let me think, E-Myth Mastery, so Michael Gerber's group. By the way, still a great book. The E-Myth, right, is a great book. And her coach, so I had a female coach, and we were coaching in strategy. So, and the strategies were incredible. I learned, like, I'm so grateful for all the things that I learned through E-Myth. And it actually facilitated my need for control. It amplified my need for control because I had limiting beliefs attached to all of that. Right? So when you're looking at your identities, what do you have? What do you want to let go of? And the ones that you have, are they still serving you? Right? Great question. That was a great question that Karen asked, right? Like, you speak as if this is still, and is that serving you? Right? And I just realized that no, it hadn't intended to bring it into my present. And so it's those awareness of those pieces. So there was a part of me that still was owning that role, right? At 54, she was valuable at 16. Right? Not so much at 54. So the other piece that's tied to this is that the reminder of, we don't become, as in becoming in the future, anything. We become or be now, right? We are a being now. I'm talking more than just like occupying a body and playing the role of human being. So more than just that. But I think what happens is we're always, in my point of view, we're projecting into the future of what we desire, and what it's a small shift. Bring it into the now, right? Bring it into the now. Who do you want to be now? And then you will be shown a way to be now. And then if you take on that identity, because it's a choice, then you can ask, okay, well, how does this identity behave? So when I decided to do the bodybuilding, and I realized I need to behave like a bodybuilder. And so how do they behave? So I, actually started interviewing people. Tell me about what you do as a bodybuilder. So I went into a little bit of research. And what I realized was that they worked out, the ones that had gone on stage worked out 7 days a week. Now, they didn't do the same workout, and they were in awareness of their body, but it was a mindset of, I'm going to move my body 7 days a week. They were aware of their food, but they weren't obsessed with their food, which I thought was really interesting. Majority. Now, there are, like everything else, right, bodybuilders who are obsessed with food. But the ones that I spoke to that were mentally healthy, that's a great thing to add. They weren't obsessed about food. They were aware how different foods affected their body. And they mostly ate for energy, but when they ate for pleasure, they really ate for pleasure. Like there was lip smacking and moaning and groaning and, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. They had such a different appreciation for food. Where I realized that my relationship with food was a love-hate relationship with food, even through all the curves, right? I hadn't quite busted through that relationship. So I had a love-hate relationship with food. I had a restrictive, this is a good food or bad food. And although I felt really that I had let that go, when I looked at it from the identification of how does a bodybuilder, how does an athlete look at the things that they do? Athletes, they treat their bodies like a temple. They really and truly do. They look at their bodies differently. And one of the best gifts that happened with bodybuilding, because I have had and still sometimes do suffer from, not suffer, let me delete that statement. In my past, up until now, there we go, because I want to delete that bullshit from my storyline. Thank you very much. With body dysmorphia, so not really truly seeing my body as it is, as others see it. And so one of the greatest gifts of standing on stage in bodybuilding is, so when you're posing, the judges are judging the body, not your body, and not you. They're judging the body. Are your muscles, are they balanced? Like, does the right bicep look similar to left bicep? Of course, because we have, right, one side of our body that's stronger than the other, right? How are the glutes formed, right? Are they firm and lifted? Or is the gluteus maximus not firm and round, but because you didn't quite get into the muscles to make them firm and round? Right? Is your back right? What do your lats look like? What do your trapezius muscles look like? Right? Are you serrated? Right? Did you dehydrate properly? Like, that's what the judges look at. And that was beautiful, because I spent most of my life judging my body and judging me. I was thinking, like, right, so they weren't judging me, they were just assessing whether the exercises and the foods that I ate had provided me with the nutrition that I needed to build the muscles. Now, they do compare when you're on stage, they do actually compare universal law of relativity, the different bodies, because they need to decide who's number one, number two, and number three, right? But they didn't compare our personalities. So I really got to see the body as part of me, but I'm not being judged on my personality, right? I'm being assessed on, like how committed was I to my food program, right? And so it was a beautiful gift that I was given, because when I go back to this now, like at the time I didn't know, or I can go back to this now and go, that is just so cool. So who do you want to identify as? And then ask yourself, okay, if I'm identifying as this, then what are the steps? What are my actions? What are my behaviors? What are my beliefs? What are my emotions? And you can make a decision to be that now. So again, we're not projecting into the future. We're be that now. And so if you say something like, I'm a successful entrepreneur, then that's cool. And then the awareness piece is, what does a successful entrepreneur mean to you? Because that's important, because that's a fairly broad statement. And I think it's important to break it down into what success means for you. I'm an abundant or prosperous business owner. What does that mean for you? And when I used to own the sales and marketing agency, all business owners would come in there because what they want to do is have more money. Like every single business person that I've met, that I work with at least, one of the things is I'd like to have, it was like two things. I'd like to have more money and not work as hard, right? And so very common. And so then I would hand them $5 and say, there you go, there's more money. And then they would laugh, because that's not actually what they meant, right? And so it was, more specific as to what that is. And I just was given a thought, a gift. So if you're deciding what more money is for you, check in with your body. Are you making a number that you're comfortable with? Or will you allow your intuition, your divine self, to provide you with the number? Because what if you're making up a number that you're comfortable with because you think that's what you can, quote unquote, do? And maybe you're not doing that because it's a egoic I number. And that could go either way. That could be less than intent, right, than the divine wants, or more than what divine wants. So tap into your divine, those of you who actually set like numbers in place. So once you decide who you want to become, and you make the decision that's who you be now, and then you ask, okay, so this is great, right? What beliefs do I need? What behaviors, what actions, what attitudes, what emotions? Then you start to moving into selecting your state. So you select the state, you select the identity, you select the state, and now you've moved into this beingness and beingness now. Now, once that's happened, the next piece of it is awareness, right? Awareness when you're not thinking like, behaving like, attitude of, beliefs of said identity. And awareness is, once you've had awareness, then so these are the words I was playing around with the words, is after awareness, it becomes more natural, right? It's not natural at first, and so to change our state. So after that, then there's transformation, transmutation, and transcendence. So so I was looking, that's what I was looking up in the dictionary before the call. I think it's important that you, if this message resonates with you, for yourself, look up the definitions and put them in order that feels good to you, right? Because transmute and transform are very similar in definition, some people are saying that you transfer form, you make a change in form, and then you transmute where the change in form becomes more natural, and then you transcend where you go beyond your limits. And so for you, just take what words resonate with you, of course, and leave the rest. What the opportunity we have, right, is to make a decision, to make a choice. And there's no wrong choice, right? Like there's no wrong choice. It simply is a decision. Like a belief is simply a decision with enough evidence to provide you of that belief being true for you. So that's why we can change a belief by just simply making a new decision and then providing evidence all along the way to like, oh yeah, this is true, right? This is true. And then over and over again, then we create a new neural pathway. So in this awareness piece of the being, the science behind it is you're creating a new neural pathway, right? I haven't used this example for a while, so I'll use this and then I'll pause for questions or comments. For me, what I've realized is that I'm a visual learner as well. And so I liken a neural pathway to a salt block for cattle in a field, right? My grandfather was a cowboy, and so I remember going out with him one day and he was moving the salt block, right? So if a salt block is originally in the northwest part of the pasture, right, it's like one cow goes and then goes to the salt block, and then all of a sudden 2 cows go, and then 3, and they go there and back and there and back and there and back, and then all of a sudden there is this path, right? If you're driving along a highway, you can see a path, right? If you're up in the air, you can see the path, and the longer that salt block is there, the more trampled, the stronger, right, the channel is. It gets wider and stronger. And so I liken a neural pathway to that. So if I want to create a new neural pathway, I have to move my salt block. So if I move my salt block to the northeast part of the pasture, then it's going to take some time for that runway, that roadway to create that strong channel. And, right, the channel on the northwest part of the pasture takes time to go back to a neutral state. And so it's easy still at first to go to the northwest. It's like, oh shit, yeah, right, I forgot. The salt block's not there. The salt block is over here. So when we talk about even building new habits or building new thoughts or building new states, and we're like, we can feel frustrated with it. But if we learn to work with our brain, right, that's what we're trying to do, is create this new pathway. And it does take time. This is when the awareness piece is like, oh, right, I don't behave, I don't wear that role of rebel any longer, right? I'm identifying as this now, right? And it's just like that pause, and then, okay, well, so then how do I need to behave now? What does that look like now? And then the reminder of tapping into, so whether it's you refer to as your body or your intuition or divine self or your guides or your angels, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong way, but tapping into whatever this energy source is for you, and confirming that, let's say your intentions that you set in these next 12 weeks, are those your egoic personality intentions? Nothing wrong with it. Or those guided by, so I'll use for me, guided by divine source energy and my guides, right? Because if it's a personality thing, my own personal experiences, that's more difficult for me to achieve, right? If it's divinely guided, then I have more ease and flow. So my personality tends to either overestimate or underestimate. And my divine never overestimates or underestimates. Right. And so I just follow the path, follow the breadcrumbs that your guides lay out for you. Because it's like, well, here you go, just take that and you can move forward and pick that up. And okay, great. Now that you've done that, then take this. And now you've done that and take this. And so I think part of what happens in our evolution is that what we're looking for and what we've been taught is that we must be consistent. Anyone hear that? Consistency is key. Okay. So what if though, right? I know all of you are like, what the hell? What if that, yeah, what if it had nothing to do with consistency? And what was consistent was our connection to divine source energy. What if that was consistent? But like, right, and this is a beautiful gift given to me, was, and again, it was, as a reflector, what's consistent is I'm not consistent. That's actually what's consistent. And I don't think I'm alone in that. What's consistent is I'm not consistent. And so, and even when we have, growing up, I had so many mentors tell me, Ranchelle, you need to just focus on one thing. And I was like, no, I don't. And mentors saying to me, you will have so much more success if you just do one thing, because that was their experience, right? And I'm like, that's not possible. Like my neurodivergent brain, I didn't realize at that time, right? I just thought it was because I had the squirrel, right? Which that certainly can be part of it, but also I'm fucking amazing. And that person might not have been able to focus on more than one thing, but I've been super successful focusing on more than one thing. I had 8 Curves franchises, and they were 8 different personalities, 8 different cities. Well, actually 7 different cities, because I had 2 here in Red Deer. So I had 8, and then I had another, I was an international trainer for another company. So I had 9 different businesses that I ran simultaneously, right? And so I'm not meant to build one business at a time. And I don't believe that there are a lot of people that, no, let me rephrase that for a moment, please. I think there are more people out there like me who have a desire to build multiple revenue streams, who see the possibilities in everything. And yes, can I get sidetracked with my squirrel, bright, shiny object? Absolutely. And less so now, because I remind myself, and I've had to remind myself less and less, is that there's time for me to do everything. And is this the time to bring it into my pot over here right now? Or do I shelf it for a moment and have this brilliant shelf of ideas, which I actually do over here, and so that when I'm ready to bring in another opportunity, I can. And because and also because that idea might not be for me, that might be for somebody else now. So those are some of the awarenesses that I've made. So some of us, I do believe, have the ability to build multiple businesses at once. And how we do that, and so maybe I'll just share this real quick, is how we do that is we move ourselves into the CEO position. You become the chief executive officer of your company. And when you move yourself into the CEO position, you realize that there are roles to be fulfilled within the company, and you might possibly be fulfilling every role. You might be the chief marketing officer, the chief financial officer, and the chief operations officer. You might be the vice president of sales, the vice president of marketing, and the vice president of operations. You might be the regional sales director, the regional marketing director, and the regional operations director. You might be the coach and the healer at the same time, and the janitor, and the bookkeeper. You might have all of those roles as the CEO right now, but you have a business. And so you can move, if you move yourself into that role, right, then, and you can identify, right, at different times as the role of the CEO. It's like the CEO is the leader of the company and makes decisions as to what direction the company is going, and then says, okay, people, let's go. This is what we need. Right? So you can be the CEO of your life, right? Be the CEO of your business, make the decision of the direction that you want to go, and you call in your people. And know your people are you, right? And if you have team members or VAs or whatever, and your team, as in your guides, your higher power, right? And your guides, your team really want you to have success, right? And so and ask your guides, right? What part of the company should I focus on today? What company is this? Like, what revenue stream? You can look at that way too, but what company? And it doesn't matter if other people can't see the connection between you and all of your things that you desire and your company. It doesn't matter at all, right? Because they're not you. They don't hold your vision. They haven't been given the vision. They don't have your guides. They don't have your connection to divine source energy. And so, yes, shiny object thing is a thing. That there is some truth to that, right? And yes, when we think about projects and stuff like that, we need to finish a project. But does it have to be in the way? And it might need to be. Does it have to be in the way that we were taught? What if you're different than the person who taught you? I don't imagine that, right? And so can you just show up in your brilliance and be loving and patient with yourself and tap into your guides and say, okay, what? Great, I trust you. So that's the challenge, right? I trust you. I trust myself. Maybe a bigger challenge, right? To do what is required of me. And that's the piece, to do what's required of me. So yesterday I said, I laughed because Amy Yamado gave her like $1 million strategy, which was make a list, call, repeat, right? I laugh my ass off, because as entrepreneurs, if we are short of cash flow, okay, so just prepare yourself for this. Emails are less effective than phone calls, right? They just are. A direct message on Messenger or a text is more effective. And you can just simply say, I have this thing, I have this yellow widget, and I really think I'd really like you to be a part of it. I'd really like you to join the widget. I'd really like you to be part of my yellow widget club. Here's what's involved. And here's why I think it would benefit you. Here's why I would love for you to be part of my yellow widget club. That is way more effective. And there's reasons why we don't do that. And we can make the excuse, I don't have the time, I don't know what to say. And, and really, what are we avoiding? We're avoiding pain. Oh my God, what if they say no? Oh no, right? Like, but we avoid rejection. And so because we have a story about what rejection is, that it means, but what if they said no? Okay. But what if they said yes? Right? What if you just said to someone, I was thinking about you, I'm doing this thing, right? And I'd love for you to be part of it. And here's what it entails. And then if they said no, just say, great, thank you. Now you could, if you wanted to, do market research and say, I appreciate that and I'd love some feedback, from a market research, and that to me is not code for trying to overcome objections, which it would be for some people, right? But I'd be like, I'm really interested in what part of this doesn't resonate with you. Those would be the words that I would use. I'm interested in, from a market research perspective, what parts of this don't resonate with you, because you can find great information. Again, use your words, because it could be that what does it resonate with them you have, but you just didn't use those words to explain it, right? It could be something you never thought of, like, holy shit, I never thought of doing that. That would be really cool. Yeah, I'm going to do that. What I can absolutely do that, right? And so imagine what would happen if, right? We just picked up the phone, right? Before internet, you know what they did? They grabbed a yellow, uh, the yellow pages, or grabbed a phone book and phoned people and asked, or went to networking events or organizations, right? They belong to organizations like, my dad used to belong to JC's, right? That's a long time ago, but would belong to organizations like that, right? Rotary Club would be one, right? Belonging to organizations so you get to know people to expand your circle, right? I think one of the most difficult challenges that we've had, and this started in 2010 when I got my coaching certification, coaches believing that I could just sit behind the computer and people would arrive at their doorstep, but they don't have the open sign on, right? So it's like opening up. Weeks ago, I shared a story about a woman in Camrose who opened up a storefront business, didn't even have a sign up top, but had an open sign, and just felt that everyone would just come to see her because it was downtown Camrose, and we had a beautiful downtown, and that people out of curiosity would come in because she had an open sign, right? And she didn't even have a sign of like what the business was. That's kind of what happens when we sit behind our computers and do nothing about our business, right? Where we don't reach out to people. We might have an open sign because we think that we're posting on Facebook, and that's enough. And at one point in time, it was enough, but Facebook has changed their algorithm, so we have to play right in their sandbox. So just a few things. Awesome. Let me stop the recording. Thanks everyone for being here, and I'll just